to our channel. Today we are going to start the blood pressure regulation. What are the determinants of arterial blood pressure? So first we need to know what are the factors which are leading to regulation of our blood pressure. So first, the normal average blood pressure, everyone know this, that is 120 by 80 millimeters of mercury. So what is this 120? Here the 120 represents the systolic blood pressure. Systolic blood pressure means in systole, especially we are talking about ventricular systole, especially left ventricular systole blood pressure. So this left ventricular systole blood pressure mainly depends on the cardiac output, because how much the in systolic blood pressure, how much the ventricle ejects, that is nothing but the cardiac output. So this is how we relate with our heart, with our blood pressure. So diastolic blood pressure mainly depends on the total peripheral resistance, because in diastole it's nothing but relaxing of the blood vessel, so relaxing of left ventricle. So when the left heart is relaxing, then it depends on the total peripheral resistance, means in the peripheral vessels how much resistance is present, it is mainly dependent on that. So systolic, so by this we can say that systolic blood pressure is directly proportional to cardiac output. That is, if cardiac output increases, then systolic blood pressure increases. And the diastolic blood pressure is also directly proportional to the total peripheral resistance. If the total peripheral resistance, when the total peripheral resistance increases, like example, when the blood vessels constrict, you can understand when the blood vessels constrict, narrow, there increases the resistance, it is hard for the blood to flow. So increase in total peripheral resistance also increases the total diastolic blood pressure. So like this, the total peripheral resistance and cardiac output are related with our blood pressure. So arterioles have lot of smooth muscles. So because of this, arterioles are also called as resistance vessels, because they are like surrounded by lot of smooth muscles. Because of this, they have a capacity to constrict and also dilate. Whenever they are constricted, the resistance is increased, and whenever they are dilated, the resistance to blood flow is decreased. So when left ventricle contracts, the mitral valve is closed, we know this, but the aortic valve is open, because ventricle is only contracting now to send the blood to the aorta, so aortic valve should be for sure open. So this is called as before, this is not called isovolumetric contraction. Isovolumetric contraction means both the mitral valve and aortic valve are closed, and ventricle is contracting like a closed chamber, that is called as isovolumetric contraction. After the completion of this contraction only, the aortic valve opens and the blood ejects out. So the pressure stretch the major vessels and arteries in aorta during the systole, and the maximum pressure is seen in the ventricle like about 120. We know during systole only there is maximum pressure in ventricle. Before it is like 4, I think. From 4 to 120 it transfers to eject the blood out into, like in the form of cardiac output. So this same 120 pressure is present in the arteries, of course, because the same pressure is now transferring to the aorta, from the aorta into arterioles, arteries. So almost everything have the same 120 pressure. So that's why if you use a sphygmomanometer, or auscultatory method, and find the cubital vein, median cubital vein, especially at brachial artery, then you can find out that same 120 pressure. So if we measure like that, we get that pressure. So increase in cardiac output, increase in 120 millimeters of mercury, that is systolic blood pressure. If decrease in cardiac, as a directly proportional, the same thing. So during diastole, the intraventricular pressure falls down, because it's like relaxing phase. Now every pressure will fall down, and the aorta recoil now. So diastole is nothing but like, in diastole also our body gets the blood. How? Because here aortic valve is closed, but because it's a like a elastic rubber band. So when the rubber band you stretch it, it again comes back with the same force. So with the same force, this remaining blood in the aorta now gets into our body tissue. So that is nothing but diastole. So aorta recoil and push the pressure on the blood to move forward and backward, but the aortic valve is closed, and now the remaining pressure in the aorta or arteries is called diastolic pressure. So the same thing also now it will, of course, as I said, this 120 pressure, systolic pressure is present in arteries. The same diastolic pressure also, of course, will be in the arteries, and this squeezes the blood to move forward in a fast fashion, and blood moves out towards the venous system. So now, of course, blood now moves to the venous system, by means of first into arteries, arterioles, into capillaries, and again into veins, venules, vena cava, and finally into our again right heart. So example, if arterial constriction is given, like some drug you give which constrict the arteries, then more peripheral resistance. Yes, because you constrict means, whenever always remember, when you constrict there is low area. Low area means low blood flow. Low blood flow While there is low blood flow, because there is more resistance is acquired and the blood can't move forward, and this creates more arterial pressure, more than 80 millimeters of mercury. If arteriodilation, like drugs like arteriodilators are given, then the total blood pressure decreases. So then the pressure decreases more than 80 millimeters of mercury. So always remember that whenever the blood vessel constricts, blood pressure increases, but blood flow decreases. And whenever dilated, means whenever the blood vessel is dilated, blood pressure decreases and blood flow increases. And next, coming to the mean arterial pressure. Now let us see the basic mean arterial pressure. So during systole, it's 120, diastole 80. That's what we are saying from many time. But how to find out the mean arterial pressure? So our diastole is like one third part of our systole is like one third part of diastole, because you can see diastole is total of what? 120. 120, how can you get 80 plus 40? What is 80 here? Diastole. What is this 40? 40 is this extra force which is required in a systole. But actually diastole is longer when compared with the systole. So this one third value also will add here to get the mean arterial pressure. So mean arterial pressure is like 40 divided by 3. This 40 extra 40 divided by 3, because it's one third of diastole. So for 40 divided by 3 we get 13. 13 plus diastole 80. 80 plus 13 we get 93. So the exact value of mean arterial pressure is actually 93 millimeters of mercury. So the mean arterial pressure average, if you take approximately, it would also be 100. That is in between the systole and diastole, because systole is 120, diastole is 180. 93 or 100, you can say they're like in between this both values. So it's like a mean, it's average. So mean systemic pressure, and we also have not only arterial pressure but also have mean systemic pressure. So what this means is, means mean arterial pressure is the pressure which is required to move the blood from the left side of the ventricle to the systemic circulation. But the mean systemic pressure is the 6.65 milliliters of mercury. This is the pressure which is used to move the blood from the capillary side to the venous side. So mean systemic pressure is present in venous side, capillaries, arteries, all this. The pressure which is maintained in systemic pressure when no cardiac output, it is the mean systemic pressure. Means nothing but that's what I'm saying. The pressure which is required to move the blood from the heart to the systemic circulation. And this pressure maintains the venous return. Because you can understand, if there is more mean systemic pressure, means more blood is coming towards the venous side. And this is like, in short form, you can call it MAP, mean arterial pressure. Okay, here we are talking about mean systemic pressure. Sorry, mean systemic pressure means the pressure which is required to move the blood from the arterial side or capillaries to the venous side, so that more venous pressure is increased. That's all. So mean arterial pressure short form is MAP, that is which maintain the flow towards the tissues, whereas MSP, that is mean systemic pressure, maintains the venous return from the tissue to the heart, that is from the tissues capillaries to the heart, again to the right side of the heart. Mainly it is associated with venous pressure. So blood pressure, blood pressure is mainly having two factors, that is cardiac output and total peripheral resistance. We already seen this. So cardiac output also, again it depends in turn on preload, contractility, afterload, and total peripheral resistance seen in diastole. So stroke volume and heart rate. Cardiac output is equal to stroke volume into heart rate. So preload, what is preload? Let us see once again all these factors. So preload is before the ventricle begin to contract. That is nothing but the end diastolic volume or the pressure. Uh, and diastolic volume only lead to the preload, and contractility, the capability of contraction. So end diastolic volume in turn affects the venous return, the filling time, that is diastolic filling time, and also venomotor. This is in turn dependent on venomotor tone and also on blood volume, arterial pressure. So next, coming to contractility, capability of contractility is also dependent, because if it is contracting more, then more cardiac output will come. If it is contracting less, that is about ventricle. If ventricle contract less, means less cardiac output. So afterload is a resistance against which left ventricle should pump. It's like afterload also, it's like nothing but like a TPR, that is total peripheral resistance, because if it is more resistant, then it is more hard for the heart to pump against it. If it is less resistance, then less very easy for the ventricle to pump. So these are all like directly proportional. You can see when blood volume is low, filling pressure is low, venous return is low, and diastolic volume is low, preload is low. So according to Frank Stalling law, stroke volume is low, cardiac output is in turn, systolic blood pressure is also low. So if contractility is low, stroke volume is low, then again cardiac output is also low. Afterload low, stroke volume high, cardiac output low. This is because afterload is inversely proportional to them. Because afterload is like resistance. If the resistance is low, there can be high stroke volume and high cardiac output. And if heart rate is high, first the stroke volume increases and cardiac output also increases, but gradually, because the heart rate is increased, in severe tachycardia patients, we can see because of higher card rate, their filling pressure, ventricular filling, venous filling pressure is decreased, so that venous return is decreased, and finally it may lead to decrease in cardiac output later. But at the beginning, cardiac output increases because they are directly proportional, right? And next, coming to TPR. TPR is a major resistance. It is seen in our arteries or arterioles. So venous side unstressed volume is like about 4 liters, and arterial side the stress volume is like about 1 liter. And cardiac output, stroke volume into heart rate. So TPR is the arteriolar tone is used to determine the TPR. So we measure the blood pressure in the arteries mainly. If we do vasoconstriction, blood from the venous side travel to the arterial side. Yeah, when you venoconstrict, now we are talking about a venoconstriction. At the venous side, if you constrict, you can understand now blood is moving from the venous side to the arterial side. Because of this pressure, there is high pressure moving towards the arterial side and the blood pressure increases. But if you do venodilation, the blood from the venous side travel less to the arterial side, because venodilation means vessels are having wider diameter now, so most of the blood just pools there. It will not come to the arterial side and the blood pressure decreases. So because of the venous side also, it affects our blood pressure, even that we need to keep in our mind. So in arterioconstriction, blood pressure increases. It will not send to the venous side, because arterioconstriction, already arteries are constricted, means low blood flow towards the venous side, so blood pressure in turn increases. Because your arteries are constricted means, hmm, there's somewhat back pressure creating there. And mean arterial pressure is cardiac output into total peripheral resistance. These are the factors which are dependent on the blood pressure, that also we need to remember. So cardiac output increases means mean arterial pressure increases, but the total peripheral resistance decreases, because total peripheral resistance is inversely proportional to this. So they are interdependent variables, that is, cardiac output and mean arterial pressure are interdependent on each other. When total peripheral resistance increases, the mean arterial pressure increases, but cardiac output decreases. So these are all very important to remember. Cardiac output increases, mean arterial pressure also increases, but the total peripheral resistance decreases. It's like very common to understand. See, when peripheral resistance is decreasing, means the blood have more chance to flow, means more cardiac output, more mean arterial pressure. But here you can see total peripheral resistance is increased. Only this, with this parameter we can easily find out. When resistance is increased, it's very hard for the blood to travel. So mean arterial pressure increases, but the cardiac output decreases. Pressure, blood pressure increases. I already said whenever there is higher resistance, there is higher blood pressure. So blood pressure will increase, but the cardiac output will decrease. So mainly by TPR we can easily say everything. So regulation of blood pressure is again further divided into short term and long term. This we'll see in next lessons. So short term is mainly done by a neurological system, that is if BP is increased or BP is decreased, like blood pressure is increased or decreased, it is regulated by neurological system, we'll see that. And long term is mainly done by renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system, our RAS system, mainly by released by kidneys. So kidneys play a major role in long term regulation. In short term regulation, we have our neurological system, so they try to maintain the stability of the blood pressure. So this is like an introduction. Now let us see into our textbook what are the important points. So here you can check out this glossary terms. Let us understand them. So arterial blood pressure is nothing but the force which is exerted by the blood against any unit area of arterial vessel wall. And compliance, it's a change in arterial blood volume per unit change in arterial pressure, means like ability to hold the blood. The greater the compliance, the greater the distensibility, means the greater the ability to dilate. Diastolic pressure is the lowest pressure in an arterial pulse pressure. Normally it's like 80 millimeters of mercury, and the mean blood pressure is the average blood pressure because the duration of diastole is longer than systole, and it is not the simple average, but it is calculated, one third of the pulse pressure plus diastolic pressure we already discussed. So what is pulse pressure? Pulse pressure is the difference between the systolic and diastolic blood pressure. Normally the pulse pressure is 40 millimeters of mercury. The systolic blood pressure is the highest pressure in an arterial pulse pressure trace. Normally it's like 120 millimeters of mercury. And Wien-Kessel effect, this is a new point which we need to focus. The elastic recoil in aorta and large elastic arteries during diastole mainly. In diastole, as we said, the diastolic pressure is mainly maintained by recoil of arteries. So following the initial distension of vessel during systolic ejection of blood, this ensures the blood flow to periphery during diastole and dampens the fluctuation in blood pressure. So always remember, our blood pressure is measured in millimeters per mercury, and this blood pressure refers to systemic arterial pressure mainly. If you say normally, if you say any blood pressure, we always like refer to the systemic blood pressure, right? So this pressure is not constant, but it is pulsatile. Why it is pulsatile? You can see it's like a pulse pattern, because first blood, during ventricular ejection in systole, first blood comes into aorta only to the periphery. Later it jumps again. So it's like this, it pulsing first here, next going to other part, like this. So it's a pulse pattern. So for example, you are doing very strenuous exercise, you can see here strenuous exercise, whole body exercise, then diastolic blood pressure may fall, but the systolic blood pressure rises. Why this happens? Because when you're doing higher exercise, your heart pumps more blood, means more cardiac output. If cardiac output is increased, you can understand there is higher systolic blood pressure, but diastolic blood pressure falls because there is total all vessels in our body constrict. When you can understand now, when vessels constrict, there is increase in total peripheral resistance. If resistance is increased, it's hard for the blood to go, so diastolic blood pressure drops. So like this, you need to correlate the concepts and understand. Now let us see this. What are the factors which affect the pulse pressure? So the first one is the stroke volume output of the heart, and also the compliance, the total distensibility of arterial tree. So pulse pressure depends on stroke volume, because the amount of blood coming, it gives the strokes like this curves. And also it depends on compliance, because how much the artery is able to distend. So it is mainly dependent on this. And also a third factor, that is a character of ejection from heart during, of course ejection is nothing but again interrelated with our stroke volume. So here let us understand these graphs. You can see on x-axis we have the time on seconds, on y-axis we have the pressure. So you can see as the time is going on, the pressure is increasing. So first at the 80 means, it's in diastole, it's in relaxing phase, and suddenly because of blood ejection there is sharp upstroke and forming a slow rise to the peak, that is 120. It is a systolic blood pressure with which the blood ejects, and also sharp insura is formed, like sudden drop in relaxation of ventricle. And finally you can see this drop to again 80, that is again coming to diastole. So exponential diastole decline may be distorted by reflected wave. So again the process continues. So this is a pulsatile fashion of our blood pressure. And next you can see in old age what happens. Mainly in old age there is already, like you will be hearing, like in old age people, they have high blood pressure because this rises, the pulse pressure in old age rises to twice the normal, because the arteries have become hardened. Now the arteries are hardened with atherosclerosis and therefore relatively non-compliant. Now just now we have seen that the pulse pressure also depends on compliance. So if the arteries are harder, they are low, means lot of compliant and increase the resistance. So because of this the blood pressure also increases. And here you can see pulse pressure formula, stroke volume divided by the arterial compliance, because these are the two factors which are mainly dependent on pulse pressure. So let us understand this graph. Here you can see aortic pulse pressure contours in atherosclerosis in older age, in aortic stenosis, patent ductus arteriosus, aortic ligature. So this is a normal wave, but in atherosclerosis you can see there is a rise in blood pressure. In aortic stenosis, you can see like this drop in blood pressure. In patent ductus arteriosus also there is rise in blood pressure. In aortic regurgitation also there is rise in blood pressure. So now let us see the transmission of pressure pulses to peripheral arteries. So heart ejects the blood into aorta, we know this. Mainly I said you already. First, it goes into proximal part. Later, it over because of inertia. The problem is here inertia. Because of inertia, you can see here. This is an iota, right? So first, only up to this part the blood comes. Later, here because of inertia, it stops, and again it pushes. So like this, like in a pulsatile fashion, it moves forward towards the systemic circulation. So this process is called transmission of pressure pulse in arteries. And the velocity here is like 3 to 5 meter per second. In the normal aorta, it's like 7 to 10 meter per second. And in the large branches, it's like 50 to 35 meter per second. In small arteries, in general, the greater the compliance, the slower the velocity. See, greater the compliance means greater capacity to hold the blood means slower the velocity. Like capillaries, you see in capillaries they have higher compliance and the blood vessel moves slowly. The means velocity of blood is slow, and faster transmission is much less compliant in small distal arteries. So you can see the fastest transmission in small arteries like especially capillaries, and in aorta the velocity of transmission of pressure pulse is like 15. So here you can see this diagram, changes in pulse pressure contrast to pulse wave. So in the beginning you can see systole, diastole, everything is normal, but in proximal aorta you can see this thing. In femoral artery you can see the pressures are changed in radial artery. So coming to this last arteriole and capillary, you can see they're like somewhat plain because they're having higher compliance, especially the smaller artery, the smaller vessels have higher compliance and slow velocity. So because of this the pulse are completely absent here. So the progressive diminution of pulses, this progressively as the pulses are going down, this process is called damping. And this damping is also dependent on two factors like resistance to blood movement in vessels and also to the compliance again. So the degree of damping is almost directly proportional to the product of resistance times the compliance, means it is directly proportional to both resistance and also compliance. So vascular distensibility we already discussed in last chapter. The most distensible are the veins among everyone we know, among all our blood vessels. Slight increase in venous pressure may cause the veins to store extra 0.5 to 1 liter of extra blood. Therefore, veins provide a reservoir for storing large quantities of blood. So units of vascular distensibility are increase in volume divided by increase in pressure into original volume. That is, for 1 millimeter mercury pressure causes a vessel that originally contained 10 millimeters of blood to increase its volume by 1 milliliter. So the distensibility would be like 0.1 or 10%. So this statement is very important. Remember that veins are more distensible than arteries. Like about veins on average 8 times more distensible than arteries, especially pulmonary vein distances are similar to those of systemic circulation. But the pulmonary arteries operate under the pressure about 1/6 of those in systemic arterial system, and the distensibilities are correspondingly greater, about 6 times to the distensibility of systemic arteries. When it's coming to vascular compliance or vascular capacitance, this formula is increase in volume by increase in pressure. And let us discuss this graph now. You can see x-axis volume, y-axis pressure. So you can see arterial system normally because of normal value it's 100, and also because of sympathetic inhibition it will be like about between 100 and 120. But when sympathetic stimulation takes place, it rises. So always remember arterial pressure rises. And even in the venous side you can see this blue one, venous side, normally it's like about 2000 to 2500, but yeah, normal value is 2500 milliliters, but because of sympathetic inhibition it comes to 3000. Because of stimulation it also increases. So compliance is equal to the distensibility times volume. The compliance of systemic vein is about 24 times of corresponding artery because it has about 8 times the distensible and the volume about 3 times greater. So volume pressure curves, these are the volume pressure curves here. Here can we already discuss this. So now we are coming to one more category, that is delayed compliance, stress relaxation of vessels. So here actually what happens is delayed compliance means the vessel is exposed to increased volume at first, exhibits a large increase in pressure, but progressively delayed stretching of smooth muscle, pressure return to normal. So normally first we give very much high increase in volume to the vessel, then what happens, let us see in vein especially, then again it comes to means it is an automatic process. So you can see here pressure begins to decrease immediately and approaches about 9 millimeters of mercury after the several minutes of injecting large amount of blood volume. In other words, the volume of blood injected causes immediate elastic distension of vein, but the smooth muscle fibers of vein begin to creep. to longer lengths, and their tension corresponding decreases. So the effect of characteristic for all smooth muscle, and it is called as stress relaxation. So this is the diagram related to that. And we have the clinical methods to mainly we use auscultatory method to find out the BP. Everyone know this BP machine, right? So how it works is a stethoscope is placed mainly on antecubital artery, and the blood pressure in the cuff is inflated in the upper arm. So you can see actually the mechanism behind this here. This is inflated, that it completely blocks the artery here. So because of blocking this artery, suddenly we release this. Because of releasing this, the blood pressure starts. So the beginning blood pressure is called systolic blood pressure. In the graph you can see here, this A, it's a beginning blood pressure. So suddenly after completely stopping at the points, you can see we can get the diastolic blood pressure, like completely when you start this blood pressure suddenly after blocking it, the turbulent flow gives some sound. That sound is called, as you can see here, Kortokov sound. We can get the Kortokov sound with the stethoscope in antecubital vein, because suddenly releasing the pressure there, suddenly opening the artery, and later after some time if you wait, the pressure drops so much, that is diastolic blood pressure. So it's like just giving the approximate value, it's not like the absolute value. So you can see pressure is great enough to close the artery in the arterial pressure cycle. Sound heard pulsation, that is called Korthoff sound, and because mainly blood is jetting partly occluded vessels and vibrations are seen, and jet causes turbulence beyond the cuff and sets up the vibration through the stethoscope. So cuff pressure gradually is reduced. So we get a muffled quality diastolic pressure beats. So that's it. But in diseases like atriovenous fistulas, in hemodialysis, or with aortic insufficiency, these cutoffs are altered. They're heard like after complete deflation of the cuff. So they're like entirely accurate, but with only values of like 10% of determined by direct catheter measurements. So increase in age results, aging on blood vessel control the mechanism. We'll see the kidneys, how they do long-term regulation. So you can see here normally the mean arterial pressure, that is MAP, is mainly nearer to the diastolic. From the graph you can say that. And with the age, especially after the age of 50 years, the systolic pressure usually increases. Blood pressure increases at the age of 60, and decrease at distance because of hardening of arteries. We discuss this, especially atherosclerosis, all these conditions. So this is all about this determinants of arterial blood pressure, just an introduction.